Alright, as you know, I don't usually do a recap, but, this was a pretty big card, a big deal, and I have some thoughts that are more than just saying, this guy won. So, let's roll. George Roop, Ruben Duran. Couple things that it didn't surprise me, but that I thought maybe weren't going to come to fruition is, Roop looked a lot better than expected. I mean, first time cut down to 135, a pretty big cut, coming off a back injury. I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be a bit of a sick duck in this fight just because of those circumstances. He wasn't. He came in prepared. He looked good. Congratulations to him. Still needs to learn to use his reach a little more because, when you're getting tagged by a guy who's 5'6" and you're 6'1", it's not a great sign. The other thing that really was noticed is that Duran just seemed a little gun shy. I mean, when they engaged in the first round, Duran managed to rock him, get the better shots in, although not the quantity. And he managed to set up takedowns off of that in the second and third round. He just kind of was content to clinch up with Roop and get kind of muscled around by him a little bit, and that was a problem. The judges scored this 30-27 for Roop. Needs to never judge again, because I don't understand how Roop won the first round. Moving on, TJ Dillashaw, Issei Tamura. Dillashaw with the knockout. Sloppy kick, actually. Wound up kneeing him in the face instead of kicking him, so, I mean, go with that. But he got the job done. Dillashaw continues to be impressive. Typical alpha male product. He's a wrestler who actually has good grappling and good striking. He's tall. He's big for the division. He has all the makings of, I don't want to say future champion because I think that word gets thrown around too much. That and I think there's a lot of young guys in that division. Mayday McDonald, Henry Barrow, who's the champion, interim champion right now, is not that old. To kind of keep that from happening. But good work, TJ. Rick Story, Bald, Quinn Mulhern. Quinn Mulhern desperately needs to learn how to strike. Desperately. It's terrible. Because Rick Story's not a good striker. He made you look laughable. Story will probably... I still say make Rick Story fight Mike Pierce. I mean, it's a fight that Mike Pierce wants because he has personal issues with Story and the Brave Legion. And, you would think they would have already made that fight happen. John Makdessi, Darren Cruickshank went largely like I said it would, in the sense that Cruickshank could win round one, but once it starts getting difficult, he starts kind of getting frustrated, shutting down. And you saw that. He looked a little bewildered at times. He took a lot of big gambling risks that did not pay off in the second and third round. He got counter-striked very easily. That's the other thing is Cruickshank is very counterable and himself doesn't have very good defensive boxing. And that's a problem when you put him up against strikers because they'll be able to tee off on him. And we saw a lot of that with the Makdessi fight. So, I mean, if Cruickshank can tighten up his defensive boxing and really just learn to keep his composure, he can do some things. I mean, he's got all the physical tools, the speed, the technique, the reach, the size, the wrestling even, to be a legitimate 155er. Chin maybe a bit iffy, but even that I don't really think is a problem. Problem is it's just composure. When things start to not work for him, he just gets sloppier and sloppier. That's really how it goes. Jordan Meehan, I'm pleased to be wrong on this fight because Jordan Meehan came out there, and this is the thing. Dan Miller won. It would have been. I mean, we know what Dan Miller is. He's not ever going to be a title contender. I'm not saying Meehan will be or is, but at 23 years old. He's got time to continue to progress. He looks better every time out. Showed a little bit more knockout power than we've particularly seen from him in the past. Stopping Dan Miller, being the first guy to do that, very impressive. He stuffed he escaped an armbar attempt that was pretty ugly. I think there's still some holes in his game. I think his wrestling's still a bit weak. But he's definitely making his way up there, and he's starting to really give Canada like that third welterweight behind Rory McDonald and George St. Pierre. Darren Elkins, Antonio Carvalho. I'm surprised to see Elkins get the knockout. I thought the stoppage was a little early, but it was coming. So I wouldn't call it a bad stoppage. I just, maybe that 5 seconds more. But of course, if Carvalho got completely caved in at that point, then we'd be calling it a late stoppage. I guess it doesn't surprise me that Elkins can knock out Carvalho. Elkins does have a lot of power. He hits hard. But his stand-up looked a little bit better. than it has in the past, which is good. And it's nice. I mean, this is the thing. I've been, harsh on Elkins in the past because he seems to just want to be, the blanket wrestler style. But, he seems to be getting better. He seems to be looking to finish things. He seems to be interested in being an exciting fighter and fighting to the full extent of a mixed martial artist. And I appreciate that. So, depending on who he fights next, I'll be kind of rooting for him. Patrick Cote, Bobby Volker, a close fight. It all comes down to how you saw the first round, because I think the second round is definitively Cote, the third round is definitively Volker. So how you saw that particular part of the action is how you see this fight going. In the end, Cote probably had the crisper strikes. On the ground, I think Volker was better, but not by a tremendously large margin. Basically, it's your typical Cote fight. He showed off some of his skills, and at 170, I don't know. At times, Volker seemed too fast for him, and there are definitely faster 170s on the planet than Bobby Volker. So, I don't know. It'll be up to the Cote camp to evaluate how this fight went, and see if they want to, continue at 170. Mike Ricci, Colin, Fletcher. This is my hands in the air. I was totally wrong. Fight. I thought Colin Fletcher could have this, and looking back, that's probably a bad call. Mike Ricci does have the tools. I don't know what it is, if I'm just overrating how good Norman Park is, I'm overrating Colin Fletcher, I'm underrating Mike Ricci, some combination of the three that made me think that, he couldn't do what Norman Park did to an extent, and he didn't, because Ricci did outstrike him. He got inside his reach very easily, outboxed him, put him on his back when he needed to. It just, Colin Fletcher just didn't seem to have an answer for him, and that's disappointing. Fletcher's got that big personality that a lot of people like to see, and I do enjoy him, but his 2 UFC fights so far have been kind of disappointing. He'll get a third shot being an Ultimate Fighter finalist, and should, I think. And we'll see what he does with it. But congratulations to Mike Ricci. Another solid win for the Canadians, who at this point, 3-1? Yeah, 3-1. Carvalho, or 4-1, pardon me. Carvalho losing, Makdessi, Cote, Mean, and Ricci winning. Chris Camozzi, Nick Ring, second loss of the night for the Canadians. I didn't agree with the decision. I thought Ring won rounds 1 and 2 and lost round 3. Lost round 3 badly, and you could almost go with a draw if you want to go with a 10-8 for Camozzi in the third. It was a repeat of the Court McGee fight in the sense that he won the first 2 rounds and then really started dying out at the end. And I think he's really got to reevaluate his game plans. He tries to use his speed, his athleticism, and Claude Patrick and Robin Black put it really well on the post UFC show on Fight Network. He's sprinting the whole time, and eventually that's going to get him tired instead of setting a constant pace that he can maintain for 15 minutes. Yeah, I didn't much care for the game plan either, of the hands down. I understand some tactical advantages of it, and how he could use his head movement to get away, but it just seems unnecessarily risky to me whenever anyone does that. Even when Anderson Silva does it, it works for him. But just because it works doesn't mean you should do it, I guess, is in the end my point. But yeah, I didn't think Camozzi won the fight. I thought Nick Ring did win the fight, and if they rematched, I would still take Nick Ring. Camozzi's just he's slow, in a nutshell. And we've made every fight I think he's had. Rogan's pointed that out. He just seems not to be quick. He's really tough. His technicality is coming a long, long way. I think he's still slightly brawler-esque, but he's getting to the point where he can mix in some technical striking. He can vary things up. His wrestling is good enough. His ground game is good enough, but it just seems like he's just that. He doesn't have that natural quickness. And I think that works against him. I can relate a little bit. As for what's next, Camozzi technically here got the win. Like I said, without that quickness, I just don't know if he's really going anywhere. I mean, he's got a 4-fight win streak here. Dustin Jacoby, Nick Catone, Luis Artuquin, Nick Ring, but I believe the only one that was still on contract is Ring. Lost to Francis Carmo, Kyle Noak in his 2 kind of step up in competitions. Maybe throw him in there with Chris Lieben. I think that could be interesting enough. I think both of those guys are kind of slow, and as a result, can make each other look fast. As for Nick Ring, he'll get another fight in Canada probably, but he's making a lot of money for a guy who is 3-2 in the UFC. Probably should have lost to Ricky Fukuda. Arguably should have lost to Court McGee, but at the same time, arguably beat Chris Camozzi. So I'd say the record probably is better than it actually should be. Ellenberger Marquardt. Ellenberger knocked him out. This is not surprising by any means. Ellenberger's got that fight-changing power, kind of like the guy we're talking about later, Johnny Hendricks, but he can alter the course of a fight with one punch, and he can put you down with that one punch, and he did that to Nate Marquardt, short-nosed opponent. Good job, Ellenberger. As for what to do with him, I mean, I've always been a fan of putting him in a rematch with Carlos Condit. Had Condit won tonight, it would have made a lot of sense. I think even with the loss, I don't know, I guess Condit, being on a 2-fight losing streak, probably does need that fight to rebuild himself against someone a little further down the division. Because 3 losses in a row has traditionally meant your cut, and I'm not saying Carlos Condit's going to get cut because they'd be insane. But I think that at the same time, you are looking at him probably needed a rebuild fight, unfortunately. You could do the Ellenberger-Hendricks fight as a number 1 contender, I guess. But in the end, I would just send Hendricks to fight for the title. So it's tough to say what to do with Jake Ellenberger right now. Demian Maia is another option. Rory McDonald's another option. Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit, really nice fight. I'm not sure if I'd agree with the decision. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again and really skeptical judging on, because I kind of turned my judging brain off when I was watching that fight because I fully expected this is going to end in a finish at some point, which is weird considering Hendricks has never been finished and Condit is very seldomly finished. But it's like both of these guys they like to finish, they like to put it in. Condit hasn't been finished since, I just want to verify, his fight with Pat Healy in 2006. So yeah, it seems weird that I was thinking that this would end in a finish, but at the same time, it really had that feel, like that electricity that someone's going down. But at the same time, I do wonder if, you can say that Hendricks won the fight with takedowns, just because, and I'm a guy who says takedowns do score points and so on. You can win a fight off takedowns if the guy on the bottom doesn't do anything and he doesn't do anything, on the standing either. But the problem is that, I think Condit won the stand-up, and I think Condit on the ground won the ground game. So it's a bit weird that we're talking about Johnny Hendricks winning this fight, which is not good for him because, of course, Dana White's thought that he didn't really beat Koscheck, robbed him of a title shot. So if Dana White really doesn't think he beat Carlos Condit, he probably won't get one again. Even though, on paper, he's done enough to get that title shot. It's getting to John Fitch-like proportions. GSP versus Nick Diaz. A fight exactly what I thought it would be. GSP went out there, he took him down when he needed to. He was able to use his boxing. Superior on a technical level. As long as you don't brawl with Diaz, you're okay. And, he did his thing. I was impressed with Diaz in the later rounds, being able to stuff some takedowns. It's something we haven't really seen from him in the past. That being said, you want to know what's wrong with Nick Diaz as a title contender? Listen to the audio between rounds 2 and 3 in his corner, and him just going, "He's just a bitch. He's just a bitch, man. It's a bitch move." If that's what you're thinking of a game plan, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I'm sorry, Diaz fans. This is Nick Diaz's problem. He wants everyone to fight like himself, and if you don't fight like him, he gets, I don't want to say confused, but angry, and doesn't adjust in any way. He just keeps trying to do the same thing. He's trying to trash talk you into brawling with him, and it doesn't work. Or when it works, he gets big wins. When it doesn't work, he loses, and that's it. Like I said, GSP Hendricks should be the next title fight, but we'll see. Anyways.